Welcome everybody, Steve here. Today I'm going to take short time, not going to take all your time up, but I want to talk about grinding discs. I get a lot of calls from friends that are asking me, what grinding disc do I buy? And I've been doing this my whole life. Ever since I could hold a grinder, I've been grinding. And I think I've pretty well got a good idea about the best ones that you should be using. Now, the tendency is when you go out and buy a grinding disc, you go out there and you buy the one that says it's going to last the longest. I am right against that. You have to work twice as hard, the grinding disc glazes up, and you basically are just heating your metal up and going nowhere. For me, time is money. I'm going to start with this, with just straight grinding. And like I said, I want a grinding disc that's going to take a lot of meat off, and it's going to grind fast for me. So what I do is I use these. Sate is the one that I use. I quite like them. There's other good brand names out there, and I use the disc that is made for aluminum. So they're a little bit softer. They're not going to last as long, but this will grind a lot of metal fast, and it's not going to heat up on you, and in the long run it's going to save your grinder. Now when I'm grinding, basically I just use this one here is a 4.5 model. You can buy a 5 model as well, and I do everything 100% of my grinding with these now. I used to do it with a little larger one, but now I just have that hooked up to my buffing wheel, and that's the only time I'll use that grinder. So there you go. For your serious grinding, and this is a 1/4 inch, make sure you get one that is made for aluminum and give it a try. You have to prove it to yourself. A must. Now when it comes to a zip cut, they make these, this one here is an 045. They make them actually a little bit thinner than this. And now you notice that I'm not the safest guy around. I don't have a guard. I don't have my handle on here because I use this one for cutting metal. Sometimes I'm cutting this way, sometimes I'm cutting this way. If I have a guard on there, I can't really see what I'm doing. It might not be the safest way, but I know what it's going to do, so I'm pretty comfortable about using it that way. If you're not, make sure that you're using a guard. Now, because I don't use a guard, this is a 4.5 inch grinder. I'm actually using a 5 inch disc. My reasoning behind that is that you use it for 5 minutes, it's going to be a 4.5 inch disc. So when you pay almost the same price for a 5 inch disc, you might as well just buy a 5 inch disc. But it works well for me. Once again, I don't go to the bargain bin and buy 10 for $3. These are about $3 a piece. Buy a good quality one, and your things will cut faster. And if it does cut faster, usually in the long run it's safer by buying a better quality disc. Same with these ones. I'll go to a job and somebody says, "Oh yeah, I bought these. I got these grinding discs at the so-and-so store, and they were 5 for, $10 or something." And they're just, might as well just throw them away. You sit there and grind all day and go absolutely nowhere. So spend a little bit of money, get a brand name. There's some really good brand names. Sate just happens to be the one I use, and you'll be happier. Trust me. When it comes to cutting with the zip disc, like when these first came out, I can remember when they came out, I was almost a little bit scared to use one of these because they're so thin. And But over the years, when I buy them, I don't just go and buy 2 or 3, I buy them by the box full. And I've used so many of them, and I've never had an issue with a zip disc. So they work really good. Even the thin ones, they're making them so well now that they just work perfect. Another option to that, this one happens to be a Lennox, but it's a steel disc, and it has the carbide on the outside. And I was a little skeptical about this at first. I bought the 4.5. I'm not going to buy a 5-inch one because it's not going to wear down. But it does work, and I use it for some thinner materials. Carbide does not like heat, so if you're sitting there blasting into something really hard, you're probably going to wreck it because you're going to get it so hot. The carbide, everything's going to break down there, and it's just going to fall apart. So, I haven't really put this to mega use, but quite happy with it. Now for stripping metal, I did this one little video here a few weeks back, and I basically just use these Easy Strip. It's kind of a fibrous type of a disc, and if you got some rusty old metal or something like that, that works really, really good. You can clean it all up, do your welding, takes paint off like that, and it doesn't create a lot of heat, and it won't cut into your metal. So when I'm needing to clean something, this is what I use. Flapper discs. Flapper discs are another one of those great inventions. Now, you can go out and buy, there's so many different names out there, and once again, I buy a name brand. This one here happens to be a Klingspor, and quite happy with their flapper discs. I think the biggest mistake people make when they go out and buy these is they buy too fine of a grit. I buy 40 grit. They're going to wear down a little bit, and the last thing you need to be doing is working really hard on a weld or whatever you're going to be grinding, where a 40 grit doesn't really leave that deep of scratches or anything like that, and does a really nice job. Don't waste your time grinding. Buy a little heavier grit, and you're going to be happy. This one, of course, is the 4.5. I don't really want to go any bigger than that with this grinder. The only reason I go 5 on that is because it doesn't take long to wear that one down. So this one happens to be a 5. Kind of caught me on that one, but it works. Just got to make sure your knuckles are not in the way. These little discs here, I bought them by the box as well. Now these are the flexible ones. Once again, I use these for the auto body. 24 grit. And once again, don't buy the fine ones. They're not going to do anything for you. As soon as you start wearing down that edge, next thing you know it, you're just spinning your wheel. So what I do, here it is. I just cut the edge with a wore out tin snip. Don't use your good ones, and then you've got a new edge all the time. Now these ones here, I do buy the 5-inch, and where's my little zip here? It's around here somewhere. No. Hold on. There it is. What I do, instead you get the rubber backing for these. I don't use the rubber backing because then you're kind of limited to just using the pad itself, where I cut mine down to get a fresh edge all the time. So what I'll actually do is just use an old zip disc as a backer. Put that on your grinder, and away you go. Works absolutely wonderful. So, the biggest thing with these, make sure you have something that's going to keep them flat. If you don't, they're just going to curl up like that, and then they're pretty well useless. Moving on real quick. Wire wheels, once again, buy a little bit coarser one. Usually if you're using a wire wheel on a grinder this size, you want it to take some stuff off. So if you're using a real fine one, once again, you're just going to be spinning your wheel. So get a little bit coarser one. This one here is, of course they don't tell me what size it is. I don't know. But it's not too bad. It's pretty heavy. Alright. Zip discs. Or not zip discs. Chop saw discs. Once again, buy name brand. But I'm going to show you a trick. When you're going through some solid steel or something that's fairly thick, the tendency is that the blade tends to glaze up. So all that metal gets kind of impregnated right into the edge here, and then it's basically like a little lubricant and you're not cutting anymore. I know that I did a job one day at a friend's place. He had a bunch of cheap ones, and every time you touch it, it just wouldn't cut. Flip the breaker. You don't want to do that. Buy a good name brand and avoid that. We're going to show you a trick about how to deglaze that edge. So I'm going to zoom in, do that, and I'll also be showing you a little close-ups of these ones here too, so if you're interested. And I'm not, none of these names here, they're not supporting me in any means or anything like that. These are just my favorite. So, okay, let's go get hooked up over here. I'm going to show you what I do to deglaze them. Okay, we got our cutoff here. This one happens to be a 12. I've also got a 14. Now, a lot of times if you're cutting, basically the best way to tell whether or not you're getting a good cut is if there's lots of sparks coming off the side over here. If there isn't, just start it up. Take your finger off the trigger. I'm going to do that again. Start it up. Let it take your finger off the trigger. Let it slow down. You got a scrap piece of metal here. What that does is it'll cut that edge a little bit, rough it up, and then you're able to grind again. Don't wear out your chop saw just because you got a cheap blade or it's starting to glaze up. So I hope that kind of clears some things up. I know that we could talk about grinding this all day long. You know, the little tiny ones for the for your die grinder. I even put them on the end of an electric drill. It works awesome. But most important thing, I know, why am I leaving the safety stuff to the end? It should be the first thing we talk about. But grinding is very dangerous, and safety glasses have saved me more than once. Gloves, and I know what ends up happening. You buy a nice pair of gloves, and first thing you do is slip with the grinder and put a cut in them. And then you get some molten metal drop through there when you're welding, but that's all part and part. You can sit on the couch and watch TV too. Then you won't get hurt. Anyway, that's my little spiel. Hey, throw me a comment if you've got some special grinding discs that you use, maybe I don't know about. I'm always willing to give everything a try. But till next time, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll find something interesting for the next one as well.